This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. It's Elizabeth Geiger, Chairman of the Architectural Review Board. It is Tuesday, September 15th. This was a special meeting agenda done on GoToMeeting. We have 3 applications tonight. I'm going to start before those doing a roll call of members on the call tonight. I have Marion Castell, Sherry Green, Leslie Mecule, Sean Brown, Allison Hughes, David Humphrey, and possibly signing in should be Dave Riley. First application tonight is ARB number 13, 2020, Make Modern. We spoke about this offline in June, and now the owners or representative of Make Modern have graced us, so it's exciting to see you. Please introduce yourself, and a reminder to everyone presenting and every ARB member, whenever you speak, every time, even if it's just the word okay, please say your name first. Thank you so much. So with that said, ARB number 13, Make Modern, go ahead.
Hi there,
Good.
I'm Erica Allen. I'm the owner for Make Modern, and I think Bob is going to do most of the talking, but I'm here for questions.
I guess so. It's Robert Maslin, and I'm the attorney representing the amended applicant, which is the Handwork School LLC, doing business as Make Modern. Can you see the slide on your screen? I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen here.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Eric is here. Gwen Matrano and I guess Nicole's not here are the other principals of Make Modern. This is a sign application. Third time up, but there's a kind of a long story that I've discussed with Dave on how we ended up where we are. We've already been to the Planning and Zoning Commission because this use needed a special permit, just like every other use allowed in the NB zone. So here we are. I'll start with an aerial photograph. The building is right on the corner. It's the end space in the building that is where I guess you'd recognize Papa Joe's, which is down on this end. Across the street is St. John's Church. Over in this end of the property is a little drive-in shoe repair place. And then you have Garden City over here, and then in this building is the fish market, a liquor store, and a gas station next door. We're White Presbyterian is on this corner, and obviously this is Norotan Avenue. Here's the sign. I've listened to the videos of the other 2 meetings where no one appeared. That's because somebody else was the applicant technically, and because of miscommunication and what have you, nobody showed up. But we're here now. This is the current sign. It's already in place. It complies with the regulations. I got the impression from the other meetings and the brief discussions that generally the ARB is okay with this particular sign. There were little square designs, I guess, on either side of the Make Modern sign. They have since been removed, and the impression I received from those earlier 2 meetings was you weren't too fond of those. Photo number 2 is, this is actually a facade. It faces the rear parking lot, and you can see it from Norotan Avenue while you're sitting at the light. The Make Modern folks have dressed this up nicely. It looks like it's freshly painted. There's a little garden here. And,
It's not that nice.
Before that, there's a little painted rock. This was left here by an anonymous pedestrian who walks through the neighborhood. I thought it was a kind of a nice touch. They an indication of how welcome this use has been. One of the questions that came up was, what's it going to look like at night? And here's a night photograph. The light fixture above the sign is new, but it's a replacement of the old light fixture. Nothing really new here except the sign that says Make Modern. Over here to the right is street light that's, I believe, a model block street light. And you can see the intensity is a little cleaner light, but it's really doesn't glare, not glaring or anything. And this does not face any residential properties. And just for your information, I put in slides showing the inside of Make Modern from a couple of angles. This is a video, and I'm not going to play it because it's a minute and 20 seconds. I'll put it in there if you'd like to see what happens at Make Modern for your own curiosity if you are curious. And here's the link. You can actually click on this and get to the website for Make Modern. And that's basically it. That's the sign. Happy to take any questions.
Liz Geiger here. Thanks, Bob Maslin. Yeah, I think this, we can go through one at a time, but just to recap for the members, we found the sign favorable and the store and everything favorable. Our only requested changes were removing the decorative aspect, logo aspects that were on the actual signboard next to the signboard. So with that said, I'm going to go through one time and see if anyone has any additional comments. Marion Castell first, and then it'll be Sherry Green.
I like the simplicity of it. Marion Castell, excuse me.
Thank you, Marion.
Thanks, Marion. Okay, the Sherry Green, and then Leslie.
Hi, Sherry Green. I think it looks terrific. I love the cleanness, the just it's so crisp and clean. I love it.
Thank you.
Leslie McCall. I like it because I believe that you took the two signs and then just replicated it on the back door. So I like that it's a clean front, and then but you still have your original sign at the back.
Oh, you mean the Make Modern here
Yes.
and some of the design things? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sean Brown, and then Allison Hughes.
I have, Bob, I have one quick, this is Sean Brown. Bob, I have one quick question. If you go back to the slide of the nighttime shot, where you had the lights on the sign at night, are those lights LEDs? And the second question is there a lens covering those lights? Because the way I read this is that there's a lot of two lights here, like sunglasses, as opposed to an ambient light that's lighting the letters, as opposed to the two like sun, eyeglass appearances of the lights from the LEDs, if that's what they are.
Erica, do you know if they're LEDs?
I think they're LEDs.
I think they are. It looks like a nice clean light. Just
Sorry.
one of the problems with a picture like this at night is the cameras don't always pick the image up the way you would actually see it with the naked eye. So it'll adjust the exposure, I guess, or the f-stop to what's in the middle of the picture or what's the brightest thing in the picture, and everything around it looks darker when, if you go out and look with the naked eye, it's not quite that, it's not going to look that pronounced. I didn't think of looking at it as, with your question in mind. I think I understand your point. You see, it looks like two bright white areas that are coming from these lights in the fixture. Is that?
Well, this is Sean. Yeah, this is Sean Brown. Now, I was looking at this because I think the sign is very good looking, and I think that because you have a corner setting on this as opposed to a perpendicular or parallel, I would like to, make sure that you get the best ambiance of the lights at night because, it's hard to see the K, E, M, O, and the D. But if you tell me that this is just a photograph and you got a good view of it at night, then I think this is really well done.
Okay. All right. I think that's the case, right, Erica? You've seen it at night more often than I have.
Yeah, I like it. I wish we had, millions more dollars and we'd have an even fancier lighting system and sign. But I think this looks pretty good for what we could budget.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Unless you have anything else, we're going to move on to Allison.
Yeah.
Did you want me to comment?
Yep.
Liz, sorry, it's Allison Hughes, sorry. I think the sign looks great, and I think it's fun to see what's going on inside those nice big glass windows that you have there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Next up, we have David Humphrey and then David Riley.
David Humphrey, do you mind just recapping what the signage or the lettering is actually, the material, how it's fixed?
Oh, yeah, it's in the amended application. It's a little easier to read because I typed it. It's black acrylic with a white background.
Okay.
And it's existing wood is the building behind it.
Okay. Yeah, just want to make sure we had that for the notes.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, it looks good. I had a kind of a question about the lighting as well, but yeah, I understand that it's likely misrepresented a bit just by the photo.
Okay, the specs are in the amended application on page 2.
Okay, thanks.
And somewhere in there should be, I believe it came out okay. There should be a copy of the shop drawing that was filed with the original application in the amended application. But if it's not clear in that, then it's in the original application. So dimensions and everything are in.
Great, thanks. David Humphrey, just Liz, was a hard copy of that amended application in our packets?
Liz got your tip.
Yesterday morning, Liz. So I don't know what logistically happens, but I dropped it off at Town Hall yesterday morning.
Yeah, Liz Geiger, Chairman here. No, we didn't get a hard copy. It was uploaded to the file folder where all the other documents are. And if anyone, that's in Tamara's email she sent to us, and she sent a recent copy today with that exact link one more time.
Great, thanks.
Dave Humphrey, we can talk offline about that for more information.
If you need it, I have it. I can put it up on the screen if you had a question about what it's.
I think we're good, Bob. This is great.
So you know, what's in it is I typed the information that was in the original form and I added the photographs that you see in the PowerPoint. And the only thing that's additional is the sheet, the spec sheet or the shop drawing, which I didn't make a slide of because I had all this other stuff.
Liz Geiger here. Okay, thanks, Bob. It's pretty straightforward, and we have seen all the details previously, but okay. Thank you. We're good. Last on the board, we've got David Riley.
Yep, David Riley speaking. Yeah, I have no exceptions to the application, and I essentially agree with all the comments that have been previously stated.
Thank you.
Marion, I'm sorry. Sorry, may I make another statement?
Mary, state your name for the record, yes.
Marion Castell. That lighting issue is really bugging me right now, having those 2 circles of white light distracting and blurring the Make Modern sign. I don't know. I think it was someone brought up a very good point. And I hope that that's not the way it's really going to look. if you could have somehow to make it spread it evenly and not have the distraction of those two white circles, would, in my opinion, would improve it.
Now you guys have pointed it out. It's going to drive me crazy.
I know. That's exactly what it is.
This is awful. Okay.
Okay, Liz Geiger here. I'm gonna hop in. Erica and Bob Maslin, looks like you guys have a great favorable report. We appreciate you guys making those small amendments that we had requested from your original application. The building looks beautiful. Erica, you do a great job making things beautiful. This is what you do in your day-to-day, so we appreciate it. And if you can take a look at those lights, I mean, you're an artist. I think you'll be critiquing it just as critiquing as we will. So take a look at
crazy. So we'll get on it.
Okay, that looks great. So if there are any other comments of the board, we'll give you a favorable report and go make away.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Bob.
for your time, everyone. Maybe you should have all your meetings at 5 o'clock.
Right. I think so. Okay, Liz Geiger here. We're going to move along. Next up is Barvita. We're seeing it at 18-2020. I'm sorry, guys, I'm pulling an email. The latest application we have for Barvita is we saw the updated proposal come through via email in August with an exterior painting application. So along with a final lighting scheme approval. I believe everyone approved the lighting over email, and we should be just reviewing the outdoor facade updates. But I'm going to leave it to the applicant to kind of review where you are and state your name, review where you are, and talk us through this final step of the process.
Hi, yeah, Brennan Bronca here, the owner of Barvita. So what I have right now is just the presentation for the painting. I was under the impression last time after we got finalized that, you know, the outside seating was approved and, you know, you guys kind of found it favorable, and I was going to follow up with Dave Keating, and we've had some talks about it. You know, I've spoken to him about the lighting, you know, the string lights going back and forth. I've also spoken to the owner of the building that has the real estate agency next to me. You know, she's approved everything as well. So, you know, I was not under the impression that I needed to do a full presentation on that. I thought we were pretty much good to go, and we just needed to buy.
Brennan, you do not. I didn't know if you wanted to. I was giving you the option to recap it, but based on our latest emails, you have a favorable report from the ARB supporting all the outdoor seating and the lighting, and
okay,
you did a good job there, and we're happy to see it going forward. So I was making sure this discussion is about the facade updates, which are painting, I think exclusive to painting.
Brennan Bronca here. Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, we're on the same page. Yeah, so basically, I'm proposing to change the outside of the building. It's like this weird pink color. In short, I kind of want to do like a light gray, all from the historic collection. Light gray for the vinyl, like the actual facade of the building. Black for the shutters, and then like a charcoal gray for the brick portion, which would be the bottom underneath the storefronts, and then the side facing the train station. So, you know, these are the actual numbers right here. The picture's a little hard to see. I included an approval letter from the landlord. He loves the idea. He's excited. And then I also have, so this is like an example of a light gray on an actual house in Darien. I don't have the address. I also might, you know, I kind of thought that was weird putting their address in there. But so these are the actual colors, just so you guys can kind of get an idea. So this would be the actual building. These would be the shutters, which are black, and then the brick portion down here would be this charcoal gray, and then here you guys can actually see it with arrows on the actual building. So let me just like.
Liz Geiger here, Chairman. Can you say slowly for the record so we can hear the three colors and recap again like what the Benjamin Moore colors are, please?
Yeah, for sure. So the actual building itself is proposed Wickham gray. So it's like a very light gray, just new, modern, clean looking. The shutters would be just black. Again, clean, updated, modern look. And then the portions of the building that are brick, which you see on the stairs and beneath the storefronts. Additionally, the wall that is facing the train station would be a charcoal slate, it's called.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah.
Brandon, Sherry Green, I have a quick question. Are those Benjamin Moore colors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should have included that Brennan here. Yeah, they're all in the Benjamin Moore historical collection.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Brendan. Liz Geiger here. Brendan, I think that's pretty straightforward. If you have anything else to add, or can I just open it back up to the board?
No, that's it. Thank
Great.
you.
Okay. We're gonna walk through the same order here, starting with Marion, Sherry, then Leslie. Marion Castell, can you lead us off?
Marion Castell, I just wanted to review in my mind, you're painting the exterior brick a gray color? Is that what you said?
Brennan here. Yeah, so the exterior brick is under the under the actual storefronts. Those would be a charcoal. So essentially,
The whole exterior is going to be a different color than the rest of the building?
I don't really understand the question. The bottom portion underneath the actual storefronts would be a charcoal. The actual building itself, that's in the pink in the picture here, is going to be a light gray, and then so the brick portion would just be a dark gray.
Liz Geiger, I think you're talking about the foundations are going to be painted. The brick foundations will be painted.
Well, no, I'm talking about the whole building. It goes all the way up to the second floor. You're going to paint that whole thing different than all the adjoining buildings?
Well,
it's just the first one. And but that whole section is slightly separate from the rest of the building, but that will be painted. The brick will be painted dark gray.
The entire building, yeah. So if you look at this, if you look here, you have the vinyl, which are like the horizontal lines going across the building. That's all vinyl. So that will all be light gray. I'm proposing to paint the whole building, the front, side, and the back. Just so anything that's vinyl would be a light gray. And then down here on the bottom, underneath the storefronts, you see a darker gray, which is sort of in between black and light gray. This would be a charcoal. And then the shutters would be the black.
All right, but you have the white above and the white pillars are staying?
Up here?
Yeah, the second floor and the dormers, and then the windows on the second floor, the shutters and the siding is still going to be white there?
I believe that this is also proposed light gray. I believe pretty much anything.
The whole building is going to be gray.
I mean, yeah,
the second
gray.
floor and with gray shutters.
Black shutters.
That doesn't appeal to me.
Mary, would you like to see the trim left in white? The building trim?
Well, that's a very old and historic building in town. It's an important historic building in town, and it's trying to do a little revival of colonial, and you're making it so modern. And I can understand around the windows and whatnot, but the building itself, I don't think it's not treated with respect at all to paint it all a gray like that. And I think it takes away the contrast is wrecked by having all the dark colors close together in their tones. And I think I'm really very much against it.
Okay.
It was one of the first buildings built in town.
They're proposing a light gray, a light gray walls. The dark gray is just the foundation. It's light gray on the vinyl in black shutters.
You're talking about a light gray on all of the second floor with a black shutter in front of it. I won't go with a gray and a black shutter. It's completely against the whole philosophy of the building.
Miriam, this is Sean. Miriam, quick question. If you were going to do the historical building, would white be an acceptable color for the building itself?
Well, you mean originally it might have been another color. Yes, perhaps it could be. The Victorians would have made it, but they wouldn't have made it a gray like that. I don't think it might have been a soft.
This is Sean again. The reason I asked the question is because I went to my Benjamin Moore wheel and pulled out Wickham Gray. It's a very, very white gray. It is not what I would consider light gray. The color here on his rendering looks green. And I'm trying to explain to all of you, I got the wheel in front of me. It's a very, very light white gray. And if you all thought the building would be acceptable in a white predominant color, this is a shade of gray off of white based on what I'm looking at in the historical colors of Benjamin Moore. It is not, if I told you it was light gray, I would have put up a darker color. This is a very white, light gray, if that helps all of you.
It does. Thank you.
Yes, Marion Castell again. I think maybe what we should do is actually, I'd like to see, I don't have the wheel in front of me, and I think it's a very important building, and the color is extremely important. And I would vote for actually somehow or other looking at it. Maybe we could go up at the building and look at some paint colors in our hands. Okay, I see what you're showing, Sean, but that's blue.
It's this here right here.
Blue. It's a problem because of the lighting. That looks a very pale blue when it comes to all the electrical wire. I mean, you don't want the dead white. I'm not saying it should be a dead white, but if I'm looking at what you're showing now with the three colors, and of course the white surrounding makes it look much. It's the contrast makes it look darker. Now the whole area around that is a pale, pale, pale gray, and that almost looks white, and that would be better in my point of view than the actual strip that you put in. Do you see what I'm talking about on the display on the screen?
No, I mean, this is Sean. Yeah, the color that he's got for Wickham Gray shows on his paper as a green. The one I showed you from the wheel looks light blue because of the computer. But if the sun were to hit this painted properly, if the sun were to light this up, it would almost look white.
Well,
that's how light this gray is.
Well, look at the screen in front of you. When you see the surrounding area, that could be acceptable, but the gray that is painted across on your horizontals is not acceptable. I mean, it's hard to say because we're talking through all this, it's being distorted. And I think it would be good to see it there, actually. Maybe go up there with some samples painted on the wall or something. I don't know.
Liz Geiger here. I'm going to hop in and keep this moving. We can talk about, let's wrap this up once I hear everybody else's comments on this as well. Marion, let's pause your comment. I want to hear the rest of the board. But my last question to you, Marion, before we move on, it sounds like the white trim is an important aspect. Do you want to make a recommendation here to Brennan about keeping the white trim as well?
Well, I think the original building should have been preserved. I'm sure it'd be a little more like it would have been originally. Yes, I would like to have if there's the difference in tone between the trim and the background is fine. Of course, you want that. But I think that
Brandon Bronson here. Yeah, I have no problem. That's a great idea. I love that. We can keep the trim white. That looks great.
Okay, well, Liz Geiger, we're going to keep moving. I'd like to hear everyone else's, the board's comments here, and maybe we'll circle back to a final thing where we see the sample put on the building for a day or two before the whole thing's painted. But moving forward here, Sherry, and then Leslie, and then Sean.
Hey, Sherry Green. I defer to Marion on this. I think it's a sizable building, and I think it's important to make sure that we all are in agreement with the colors. I would like to see a sample put up. I love the way it looks, and I love the idea of repainting it and making it fresh and white trim. I think it's terrific, and I like the facade with the Barvita, the way it looks on this picture. I am not actually seeing the Wickham Gray, and I thought I had my wheel right here, and I don't. So I'd like to see the color before I weigh in completely.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brennan.
No, you mean you would like to see the color in person, or do you want me to refer to a different spot on my screen?
Well, if you have something, I'm just not seeing it. I'm seeing the black and the charcoal, but I'm not seeing the Wickham Gray. It's not showing up. And I tried to put my own wheel and I don't know what I've done with it.
Can you follow my mouse? Do you see my mouse on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so it's right here. I'm right in the middle of it.
So it looks white to me. I mean, it's showing up as white. So I assume it's very, very pale.
Light gray. Yeah,
Okay. I think that sounds great, as long as Marion is comfortable with it historically.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Okay, then we've got Leslie and then Sean.
Hi, Leslie McCauley. I agree. I think we need Marion to weigh in on this because she's our historical recorder. It would be nice to see what it looks like on the building.
Thanks, Leslie. Sean?
Sean Brown. Basically, because I have the wheel in front of me, I'm approving the Wickham Gray. So you have my vote now until you see it on the siding.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. We have Allison, then Dave Humphrey and Dave Riley. Allison, you're on mute. We don't have you.
Okay, sorry, Allison Hughes. I most definitely think we should see it in person, especially since we've been conducting these meetings virtually as we are. And I think that this is an important building and we should see a color sample painted on the building. I agree that the trim most definitely should be white. Other than that, I kind of have to say I will miss the pink a little. I think it's unique. It's unique. So that's it.
Thanks, Allison. Dave Humphrey and then Dave Riley.
It's a little tough to tell. A couple things I pulled up online. Some places it looks a little lighter. Some places it looks pretty much similar to what's on the screen. I think it would be nice to be a touch lighter than what's on the screen, but if that's how it's, actually colored on the building, I'd be okay with that. I think the trim remaining white is a good idea. I think the building itself, because of the amount of storefront in the first floor and the shingles essentially being the siding on the third floor, there isn't too much, at least on the front facade, that will be this Wickham Gray. I just wanted to ask what was the reasoning for going with the charcoal on the alley wall? It feels a bit dark to me, but just wanted to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, Brennan Bronca here. Honestly, I looked across the street and I love the way that Heights Pizza looks. I think they did a good job, and you can easily see the contrast between their sort of charcoal slate and then their string lights that they have outside and their outside seating, and that I think looks really good. So that was sort of a safe way for me to know that if I just kind of like replicated that sort of color scheme, I know it's going to look good, right? Because you never 100% can tell, but they did a really good job, so I figured it would look great on my side as well.
Right. What building or store was that you mentioned?
I don't actually know the number. It's the new Heights Pizza. It used to be Planet Pizza. It's right by the train station.
Oh, got it.
They have an outdoor light setup, with outdoor tables, and their like whole building is, essentially the same exact color. Yeah, and it looks really good. I mean, it looks really clean, looks nice. The lighting looks nice. The seats look great. So given that that's going to be sort of my outside seating situation, I thought that was like pretty much the safe play while also kind of making it newer, modern. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, for everyone's reference, the building across the street is, the entire building is a dark gray. Okay. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks, Dave. All right, Riley.
Dave Riley here. Yeah, I couldn't stress enough how important a mock-up would be in this circumstance, and really agree with Marion on that. Typically, when we write our specs for exterior paints, we ask for like a 2 foot by 2 foot, section of the wall to be painted a certain color, just for viewing. So I think alluding to that sort of a request in this case is really supported by its location. I think one question I have is, and this is more of a technical thing, is if that is vinyl siding, how well does vinyl siding take paint? And are there any special circumstances that have to be met in order for it to have some longevity? Because typically vinyl siding is color embedded. So I'm just a little curious as to when painting vinyl siding, how can you guarantee that it'll last? And that's something I can't answer right now. I haven't had any experience painting vinyl siding, but I would raise it as a question to the actual application to make sure that if there's any special prep work that needs to be done, that's all addressed. And I would really hate to see in a year for the paint to be bubbling off, mainly because it's a non-porous surface. So that's kind of a technical comment on that I would urge and stress that the applicant and the contractor address.
Yeah. So Brennan Bronk here, just to update you. Yeah, so we would go through like a power washing system and do all of that and make sure that it's stuck. Also, Frank Almazri is the owner of the building, and he was the one that I think chose that color, and he was either there or decided on the paint. So they were the ones that painted it that pink. So that just kind of shows that I mean, that thing's been there for like 50 something years. So I think that we shouldn't have a problem with the painting of it. Yeah.
Dave Riley speaking, and you said the paint's been on for 50 or 15 years. Because if it's 50 years, then I don't know if vinyl siding was being made 50 years ago, or at least it wasn't prevalent.
Frank Almazri is the owner. He's owned it for like literally, I mean, just over 25, 30 years, something like that. And he was, however long ago it was, like he was the one that had a major decision in the painting of it. I think that they chose that color. So, I mean, it'll last 25 years, 30 years, for sure.
Right, David Humphrey here. So you're sure that's vinyl siding on the building?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty positive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yikes.
Dave Riley speaking here again. I would again urge that be confirmed, and it be confirmed that the siding, power washing, any special prep work that is necessary to guarantee the success of the application just be adhered to. So that's my comment on that. And then also the need for a mock-up and informing the ARB when the mock-up's prepared for our viewing.
The mock-up's up here. This is a picture of what it would look like with everything.
Dave Riley speaking here again. That's a picture. That's not a mock-up. A mock-up is actually an application in the field for people to view. So and that is what Marion had asked be done. And I think it's something that's a reasonable request.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, David Humphrey, one more point here. You can see from just from the Google Maps that it is vinyl siding, but I second Dave Riley's comment about, kind of a little bit more specific detail about how to paint that. So this, it's your understanding that this vinyl siding was painted, or this is the color that it was when it was installed?
It is my understanding that this was a specific color that was painted. Yeah.
Okay.
But I can confirm. I don't. I mean, I can go back.
Yeah. I'd recommend, a note from either the vinyl siding manufacturer or somebody to say, this can be painted, and these are the steps that you should follow to paint it, because like Dave Riley was saying, a little atypical to paint vinyl siding.
Okay, cool, got it.
All right, Liz Geiger here. Guys, I really appreciate your thoughtful comments there. Brendan, thank you for putting together this revised presentation and coming to us. I know it's difficult to do online. To sum up what the board said, based on Marion Castell is our town historian, and beyond her, it sounds like a lot of the board members would like to see this piece in person. So offline, we're going to set up a time between you. I'll work with David Keating here, and we will set up a time that works best for you to get some samples and do a mock-up on the building and set up a window that we can all come and visit that. So we'll navigate that offline if you're okay with that, Brendan.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll follow up with you offline. I really appreciate your presentation, and oh, in that meeting, it'd be great if we could get the building owner, Franco Mazzari, to come with us if he's available, and you think he'd be amenable to that conversation as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'll ask him right now, and I'll see what his schedule is like, and then we can
Okay.
go from there. Thanks so much.
That's great. All right, thanks, guys. All right, Brendan, we'll talk.
Yep, thank you.
Next up, guys, we have ARB number 19, 2020. This is 7-Eleven Incorporated at 306 Boston Post Road. Before I turn over the application to the 7-Eleven team, I'm going to let our ARB members know this application is on the ZBA agenda for tomorrow night. They have not reviewed it, and the 7-Eleven applicants, as you can tell, are asking for a number of variances. To kind of read those off to you guys, so you have an idea of what they're talking about. They are requesting to do a pole sign that's 23 feet in height versus 18 feet in height. That's the first variance. The second one is they're looking to get it 5 feet from the road versus the approved setback line, property line. In addition, they're looking to add a fuel price sign as part of like a 25-foot sign instead of a 12 square foot maximum area sign that's allotted for them. A fourth variance they're requesting here is that fuel sign also be 5 feet from the road and not on setback on the property line per our codes. And the last one is they're looking for a pole sign, another fuel price pole sign that's 48 feet in square feet in lieu of a 30 square foot combined maximum area. So I kind of give you that outline just to know what the ZBA is going to be looking at tomorrow night on the agenda. So I'm going to have 7-Eleven present to us tonight to give us a preview, but we are not going to give a report on this because it's independent. It depends on what ZBA rules on this, and depending their ruling, we will see this application again. So that said, 7-Eleven, whoever wants to start, please introduce yourselves and let us know who's on the phone call tonight.
Sure. So let me start. My name is Amy Suchins. I'm an attorney at Hurwitz, Sagrin, Salzburg, and Nuff with offices in Milford. And with me tonight are various representatives of the 7-Eleven development team. Presenting with me this evening is James Owens, who is our architect from HFA. And then also available is Jim Bernardino, who is our project site engineer. And we also have Dorothy Fleischman, who is the representative of 7-Eleven, and Mark Donahue, who is our project manager, all of whom, if you have any questions, are available to answer those. We do have a presentation to make to you that describes, James is going to go through the site and also give you the elevations and descriptions of the building. And then I'll come back to do an overview of the signage. I do just want to clarify what the chairwoman described as our variances for tomorrow night. The description was somewhat inaccurate with respect to the size and height of the signs. So we have 4 variances pending in front of the ZBA, all related to the pole sign. So what is just technically allowed, just to make it very specific is it's with respect to the location of the pylon sign being closer to the road than the canopy, the building excuse me, the gas canopy. And because the fuel price sign is located on that pylon sign, that's a separate variance. And then we also have variance requests with respect to the size of the signs shown there. And I will go through the breakdown of each of those signs when we turn it over to signage. So with that, I'm going to just share my screen, bring you into the presentation, and then I will turn it over to our architect to walk you through the site. So hold on just a second. Okay, so here we are. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Great, thanks, Amy. So again, I'm James Owens. I'm with Harrison French and Associates, and just tonight with me is one of my associates, Megan Davis. She's actually one of the designers on this project to assist me and answer any questions that I may not be able to. So just a little bit of context and background. I'm an architect and I practice out of Southern Massachusetts. At HFA, we do a lot of retail and convenience store work. But for this project, we've actually partnered with EBI and 7-Eleven. We've got a lot of experience working in New England, and we understand regionalism and vernacular. The design architects working with 7-Eleven on the interior layout, they're actually based out of Dallas, Texas. And so we've been also able to partner with them and really lead the design on the exterior so that it's more contextually fitting to Darien, which we're excited about. I mean, traditionally, 7-Eleven has been moving in the direction of a more modern look with their stores, very simple massing, flat roofs. So this one we're excited about because it's got it's more of a New England vernacular. And again, we think it's more appropriate for the Darien setting. So just for, I can certainly answer any questions along the way, but just to help facilitate the virtual setting, I'm going to run through all the slides and then we can kind of circle back on questions if that sounds okay. And so before I get into just the overall building design, I just want to acclimate everybody to the site. So here, Amy's got just an overall satellite image of the site. Obviously, we're here in yellow. We're located right on the off-ramp of 95 in Boston Post Road. And currently on the site, there is an existing Duchess restaurant. And Amy, if you can just click to the next slide. So here's the existing site plan, and we've just highlighted out in that kind of pink hue where the existing building is, and that's, like I said, the Duchess restaurant. It's a tight site. We're keeping the existing curb cut entrance that's on Boston Post Road, as you can see. And then Amy, if you can advance to the next slide. And so here's the proposed site plan. So again, we've highlighted in pink is the footprint of that existing Duchess restaurant that is coming down. The proposed convenience store, approximately 4,000 square feet, is located on the right, which is the southern side of the property along the edge. And then, excuse me, on the northern side of the site is where we're locating the fuel canopy. There's actually 6 fuel dispensers, which translates into 12 fueling positions. And so this is a double car configuration where you would have cars stacking front and back and fueling positions on each side of the dispenser. So that's how we're coming up with the 12, two cars at each dispenser. Again, we've kept the existing curb cut entrance. We've got parking along the site perimeter, and then the dumpster located along the backside. So Amy, if you can flip to the next slide, I'm just gonna kind of drive you through the site here using Google Maps. So here, again, this is driving south on Boston Post Road. And you can see on the left-hand side, that's the existing Duchess restaurant. On the right-hand side is the diner. And Amy, if you can advance to the next slide. So again, this is just a head-on shot directly across the street from us, looking at the Darien Diner, just so everybody can kind of familiarize themselves with the context. Again, next slide. So again, driving further up on the Boston Post Ride here, you see a kind of a better shot of the Duchess restaurant. And next slide. This is more of a head-on shot. So again, this is on the southern, our building, I know you can't see my pointer, because we're relocating, we're moving our building closer to the southern property line. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Amy. It's going to fall just in that void space. So again, we're getting closer to the existing commercial office building there, which is a little bit more modern and dark. Next slide here. This is directly across the street from us. This is just the, I think it's an athletic office building. Again, on the right-hand side there, you can see the Darien Diner. So this, again, that's viewing directly across the street from us from our curb cut entrance. And next slide. Yep, and then this is further up on Boston Post Road. On the left-hand side is where that modern office building is. On the right-hand side here, just again for context, is a little shopping plaza. Next slide. And now this will be turning around, looking back down on the Boston Post Road. Again, you see that modern office building on the right-hand side. Further down on the right, you can see the Duchess Restaurant. And again, on the left-hand side, you see that athletic office building there. So with that being said, just to kind of give context, here's our proposed sketch of the building. And again, I'm just gonna, so, you know, really, I mentioned a couple things. It's a tight site. We're moving away from kind of the typical 7-Eleven prototype that they've been developing and using. We wanted to use more traditional New England materials and New England massing. We've got very simple siding and brick veneer. The massing is a simple gable roof with small dormers just to help articulate the roof massing. And just for context, you know, our ridge peak there is about a little less than 24 feet. It's about 23.9. And if you can advance to the next slide. So these are the two primary elevations. Again, just because the way that the building is orientated with the short side facing the street, this bottom elevation here is what you're actually going to be seeing along Boston Post Road. And you know, again, we're trying to help articulate that. We understand it's a very blank and tall elevation. So, you know, we're trying to articulate that with some brick pilasters, introducing some decorative louvered elements on the facade. The interior of the store doesn't really lend itself to windows, just because there's coolers, and we've got a floor plan for context, but primarily all the storefront glass is along the left side, which is the long side elevation that faces the fuel pumps. When obviously for visibility, we want to maximize that. So, you know, that we've got a white aluminum storefront system. We've kind of identified the entrance with this kind of monumental feature just to help orientate people and, you know, tell people, hey, this is kind of where the entrance is. Again, we'll talk about signage maybe later on in the presentation, but this Boston Post Road elevation is where we've got our primary signage. We've, again, tried to just articulate, you know, some little detailing with the gooseneck lighting. It's more for decorative accent lights. We do have recessed can lights that we're using in the soffit, so the goosenecks are just to kind of help articulate that facade. Next slide, Amy. So this would be the kind of rear facing elevations. Again, that right side elevation would be the long elevation that would be facing the adjacent commercial building. We've carved out a flat roof onto that gable roof just so that we can hide some mechanical equipment, because we don't want to have any of that equipment on the ground. And then we've got the rear elevation, which would be the elevation facing Route 95. Again, very similar to what we see on the Boston Post Road side, except no signage there. And again, you know, putting some articulation on that with the lattice and the gooseneck lighting. So next slide here. So this is just a slide of all the materials that we were proposing. So again, very traditional materials. We've got asphalt shingles on the roof, which is kind of a cobblestone gray, which is a nice blend, and it's a architectural shingle, so it gives us that nice profile. We've got a very light gray, cobblestone gray on the siding, a brick veneer pattern that's more of a kind of traditional New England red. Again, you can see the decorative gooseneck lighting and this decorative lattice work that will be applied onto the building facade, and again on the storefront, it's just a simple bone white. So very, very simple palette. Next slide. Again, this is just for context, showing the interior of the store, and we just wanted to point out, you know, there's a lot of stuff that happens inside these stores. The visibility is happening along the long elevation for visibility to the pumps, but the elevation facing Boston Post Road doesn't really lend itself to windows or anything like that. So that's why we've tried to introduce something there with the lattice panels. And next slide, Amy. So just talk about signage a little bit. This is just a key plan to identify all the areas that we're proposing to introduce signage. The P located out on the curb, we'll show in a minute. That's going to be the pylon sign. On the building itself, I'll start at the A2. We have, you might have seen that in the elevations, very simple identity signage. The E would be a very simple welcome signage. Again, the B here, that's another identity signage for 7-Eleven. And then on the Boston Post Road elevation, that's where we're looking for our primary signage, which is identified as A1 and S. That was that 7-Eleven marquee sign element with the stripe bands. So again, next slide, Amy. This is probably the more critical sign to talk about, but this is the pylon sign on Boston Post Road. 15 foot is the height that we're proposing. We do have, again, some identity signage for 7-Eleven and Roost, which is one of their food brand partners. And then we've got the, both those signs are internally illuminated, and then we've got the pricing digital sign. And if you advance to the next slide, which is the last slide in the presentation, you'll see, again, these are showing the Duchess restaurant. So please ignore that, but hopefully this will give you just a sense of scale and context as to where the pylon sign would be proposed, because again, the curb cut entrance isn't moving too much. So you can kind of see what the scale is in relationship to what's out there. And I believe that was the last sign. I know this project has a lot of moving parts and there's a lot to cover here. So again, I try to just give an overview presentation as to what we're proposing, highlighting key features, and I'd like to just kind of open it up here to questions, unless Amy, you want to add anything else, or any of our other team members, like I said, Mark from EBI and Jim Bernardino from Roller are also on the line here to answer any questions or talk about things.
Sure. I think the one thing that I wanted to add, and I'm just going to scroll back
Make
up.
sure to identify yourself when you guys speak each time.
Yep, sorry. Amy Suchins. The one thing I just wanted to give a further breakdown for the board's understanding is on the pylon sign. So the 7-Eleven primary sign is the one that is 23. We're proposing 23 square feet, and that is just that 23 is just the 7-Eleven portion. The Raise the Roost sign is approximately 8 square feet, and that is for, as you know, noted in the application materials, the convenience store will have, as many modern convenience stores do, a food service element, and that is the name and brand of the food service element that will be located in the store. And that, as I said, is approximately 8 square feet. So those two signs combined for the sort of what I would call the occupant signage totals just about 31 square feet. The variance that we are looking for from the ZBA tomorrow, that would be otherwise allowed to be 18 square feet. And so that is the 8 of the 25 square feet that you see noted on the plan is actually related to the Raise the Roost sign. The fuel price sign itself, we are allowed to have 12 square feet based on the location on Boston Post Road, size of the lettering to make it visible at the speeds that our vehicles are traveling on the Post Road. We are asking for that variance, and that is based on the size of the fuel price sign that's shown here is 17 square feet, and we're allowed 12. So as I said, those are the two signage size variances, and then the other variance that we're looking for is with respect to the location of this sign being closer to the street than the building canopy. And because the fuels, not only is the pylon sign there, but the fact that the fuel price sign is located on the pylon sign, those require 2 separate variances because they're called out in separate sections of the regulations. The height of 15 feet is what's allowed in the SB zone as a automotive automotive oriented district. So we're not looking for, there's no height variance that is required with respect to this sign. So I just with those clarifications, I think we've covered everything that we intended to present affirmatively. We're, as James mentioned, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Liz Geiger here. Thanks, guys. Amy and James, I have a question for you. Is the facade updates you're presenting right now, is this your final building proposal? Signage aside, I don't see architectural schematics here with your building. So is this your first and final presentation to ARB for the building itself as well?
It was intended to be. Was there something that you were looking for that was not included in the package?
I'm going to open up to the board here. So members, let's start off. I'll start with Marion Castell. I'm gonna let the board talk about it. Amy, I wasn't aware that we were doing you guys were doing the building. I thought it was leading with signage and we were going to circle back on the building. But that said, members of the ARB, you are free to comment about everything. As far as signage goes, like I said, I think it's a little premature and maybe extraneous for us to even comment on the signage since ZBA hasn't ruled on it. But if you have any helpful ideas or thoughts on it, I'm sure Amy and James would welcome it. It would help their presentation tomorrow night. So that said, Marion, do you want to start off and then Sherry?
Marion Castell here. Now I have 2 colors that I'm seeing on what was presented to us on the entranceway. One is a very light blue and the other is a very dark blue. And I wasn't clear what color you are doing for that main entrance. And one of the questions I have in many ways about the blue, you're introducing the light blue, looks like a child's, a young kid's bedroom wall color in a sense, but I mean, it doesn't seem to have the same ring or tone as the dark blue. And in this case, I would prefer a dark color, I think. Is that painted glass right next to the front door, that pale color, is that painted glass?
This is James Owens from HFA. I'll respond. So the front elevation, the blue that you see is rendered to depict just clear glass.
It's clear glass?
It would be clear glass. We're not proposing any colors on the storefront.
Okay.
The darker blue is just being rendered a little bit darker because it's under shade with that entrance that projects out. So our intent is to have clear glass throughout the storefront system, no color glass. We just didn't want to render it, black or, anything else. So maybe that's a little deceiving in that sense.
Okay, it's clear glass. Well, that clarifies that. Now, when it's clear glass, which means walking in, you're going to be able to see all of the inside of, all the clutter and all the shelves and everything inside the 7-Eleven. It's going to be visible. Are you going to make it slightly, rumpled so you can't distinguish what's behind it?
Again, James Owens with HFA. Our intent, it would be clear glass so that everybody can see the merchandise that's very nicely organized and stocked on gondolas and everything. I've seen the stores.
I don't mean to criticize how it's organized. It was just, it can be confusing to see sometimes the interiors. And the other quick question I had was the lattice work. And this is just a decorative. Are you going to have something climbing on it in the future, or is it just a way of breaking up a space?
Yep, James Owens from HFA. No, purely decorative. At this time, no intent for any greenery or landscaping. Just a pure architectural element.
And that is that a white lattice against a gray vinyl background, or a brick, depending where you're looking at?
James Owens from HFA. Yes, that'd be correct. It would be applied over over white applied directly over the vinyl or brick, depending
Oh,
on where
brick.
it falls.
Okay, all right. Those are the end of my questions. Marion, yeah, I'm finished.
Thanks, Marion. Next up, I've got Sherry and then Leslie.
Sherry Green, I have a question about the logo, the 7-Eleven on the Post Road side. Is that within our guidelines size-wise? The big 7-Eleven that's facing the Post Road.
Hold on. I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
The one that's,
I'm gonna let
the one
Dave,
that's here.
On the building.
I'm gonna let Dave Keating address the questions about regulations, but go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry, so the question, I'm sorry, this is Dave Keating. The question is about the size of the lettering on the 7-Eleven sign on the building?
Yeah, the one that has the stripes. Is that within our regulation?
If you feel that it's appropriate, yes. The zoning regulations will change because they used to limit the letter height to 10 inches, and that restriction is now a guideline as opposed to a restriction. So you can approve anything bigger than that if you feel it's appropriate.
Okay, and the welcome sign over the main entrance, that's going to be there as well.
Yeah, again, Liz Geiger here. Again, guys, I would probably refrain a little bit from addressing the signage. All of this is beyond our new guidelines that we just had drawn up. A majority of these signs are beyond regulations. And again, so this is why it's going to go to ZBA. If ZBA grants variances for these things and we see this exact signage plan come back to us, we can address the number of signs. But per regulation, we allow one wall sign, one post sign for this location, and they're also allowed a second fuel sign. But again, we can talk those details once ZBA, if ZBA approves that.
Okay, understood. One more comment, still Sherry Green. I don't have a solution, but I'm finding just the plain glass windows problematic, but I don't know how to solve that because obviously you don't want grids in the window if you're trying to make it all visible to the gas. I don't know, it just looks very plain to me, but I don't really know how to solve that. That's just my gut reaction. That's it. Oh, one last thing. Still Sherry Green. What kind is the Roost food section? Is that going to be confusing to the Roost that we have at the other end of town? I know they're totally different things, but is that going to be confusing or people think it's the same thing?
Having looked at that, Amy Suchins, that was actually something that was raised by staff. The names are different. It looks like based on what I've seen for the coffee Roost, the color schemes are different and logos and stuff. So I think we're comfortable that those are distinguishable once the facility opens.
Okay. And what kind of food is that going to be?
It's going to be, as you might guess from Roost, a chicken-oriented menu.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Liz Geiger here. Amy and James, maybe a helpful hint here is if when approving the signs, we don't allow for any signage beyond the official company name on there. So unless the Roost is part of 7-Eleven's official business name, it would be considered a description signage, and it wouldn't be allowed there without, again, a variance.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Our guidelines do not allow for, Liz Geiger here, our guidelines don't allow for descriptive content on our signage. So unless the Roost part is part of your official business name.
Correct. It's a separate facility. So much like if you have a mobile station that has a Dunkin' Donuts in it, it is a Raise the Roost store inside 7-Eleven. So it'd be like a mobile and Dunkin' Donuts co-located on a site.
Right.
Excuse me,
So
this
again,
is Mark Donahoe. This is Mark Donahoe for 7-Eleven as well. I just want to point out that the Roost sign and the 7-Eleven sign on the elevation in the glass, Those are interior hung signs inside the building that you can see through the glass. Those are not exterior signs.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, guys. Liz Geiger here. We'll move on. Leslie and then Sean.
Hi there. I'm looking at these plans and I don't see any trees, tree removals. You have grass area and proposed landscaping area. You have a separate lighting plan and landscape plan?
I didn't hear the first one. Separate what and?
Lighting plan and the landscape plan.
Yes, the lighting plan and landscape plan are both included in the submission set. If you give me 1 second, if I can share my screen again, I can pull those up. But the intent is to keep the as much of the existing landscaping as we can, given the, that's part of why we're maintaining the curb cuts. And hold on. So let's see. So here's the landscaping plan that was included in the site plan submission that was part of your package. Jim Bernardino from Bowler is on the call if you have any specific questions, but just so you can see, there is, landscaping that is proposed around the site. And as I said, we're trying to maintain the existing vegetation to the extent that that's possible. And then the lighting plan was included. Hold on. In the submission set as well. So obviously, and this is actually posted on the town's website if you want to review it separately. But obviously, the brightest light is right around for safety reasons, right around the store and the canopies, and then it dims out along and hits zero along the property lines. So those are included in the, as I said, the Bowler site plan in the submission package.
Sorry, can you tell me the trees you planted along Post Road?
Sure. Jim, do you want to take over and discuss the planting? And I'll just pull up the sheet.
Sure, that'll be fine. Bear with me, I want to move it over so I have a bigger monitor. Now, the proposed landscaping plan that we did, we obviously took a look at the main thoroughway along Boston Road, and what we've done there is we incorporated a number of shade trees along the frontage that obviously gives the street presence a little more, of the feel that I think Darien is looking to accomplish. We've incorporated landscaping beds along the front to enhance those shade trees with a combination of some evergreen shrubs and ground cover as well. We're flanking the entrance both sides with some perennial flowers and grasses and the like to enhance, as I said, both sides of the entry as well as the proposed pylon sign. Along the western property edge, there's some existing vegetation that exists there today. We don't depict it, but we're going to try to maintain that as much as possible. But we are enhancing that entire eastern property line with an additional screen wall, which has a number of evergreen plantings that will provide an aesthetic buffer to the neighbor. And then we have various proposals in certain areas of grass lawn area. There's a small area that's a little steeper along the I-95 ramp. So that area is a little steeper, a little more difficult to maintain. So we provided a steep slope mix, which has a variety of fescues and the like that are designed to grow a little bit longer and are a little more hardy. And so that maintenance would be in the realm of 2 to 3 times a year rather than a weekly mow. So it's designed to be a little bit of a longer and aesthetic grass, just for the difficulty in maintenance on those steep slopes. That's the, I just lost my screen. That's the general goal of what we were trying to accomplish with the landscaping plan. I could run through lighting plan if you like as well.
Can I just ask a question? Leslie McCauley. Amy, could you bring the image so I can see down where you enter?
Right here? Sure. I think I'm gonna have to zoom and then share. Hold on a second.
And what are those trees? Leslie McCauley.
Well, bear with me. I'll get the species for you.
I see
Yeah, I'm not the landscape architect, but I did work with them to develop. You just open it up.
Dave Riley speaking here. It's Bradford Pear.
Okay.
C701.
Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You beat me to it. I just got there now. I apologize.
This is Chairman Liz Geiger here. Leslie, offhand, not to put you on the spot, but do you know if the tree plantings along the post road they're proposing are on our Darien guideline?
Yes, Calorie Pear are on the, but you're not supposed to put 2 side by side. Yep, number 16 on parking lot and number 5 on existing street tree.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe since James was jumping in for the landscaper here, maybe you could give him your small comment about the side-by-side plantings.
We can do
that. And I should also say that Leslie McCauley, I'm calling in from Canada and I didn't receive the board packet, so I can only literally. So yes, as Liz was saying, one of the, I don't know if you read through our guidelines, but in the street tree list, you can not duplicate a street tree every 3 picks. So you can't have one mass of one species.
We will make that revision then.
And if you look at the guidelines, it tells what tree to use.
Yep, I did actually. I saw those earlier, but we will confirm with the landscape architect and make those changes.
Thank you.
Liz Geiger here. Amy, if you also want to take this a little further offline, our board is in the process of updating our off-post road streetscape approved tree list. So there's a couple of trees that have been added on there. So Lizzie and I have been working on that, and we're actually going to discuss it as a board after the
meeting. I saw that on the agenda.
So if you guys go to update this, if you it's something that we can kind of revisit when you guys, we'll ask you guys to send in a revised landscape plan with the small edits. And if that's a question you want to work out before that happens, we can discuss that over email.
Great, thank you.
All right, guys. Next up, we've got Sean Brown and then Allison.
This is Sean Brown. I always have to bring up my favorite comment about, I recognize that the business is 7-Eleven, but where's the number for the address? And I believe according to the drawings, your address is 306 Post Road. And in looking at a location for it, I'm looking at the street elevation facing Boston Post Road with the lattice on the 3 windows and wondering if the number might not work underneath the left gooseneck lantern on that brick facade.
Left lattice under the brick facade is the suggestion. We will we'll make that note as well.
Sean, are you there? Liz got here. Sean, I think you're frozen. Are you there? Or are you here?
Oh no, I'm here. It's Sean. I don't have an overall preference. I mean, I looked at both the brick column that holding the overhang, but I also liked it under the light because then it's illuminated at night for the number. I'm thinking white pin letters on the brick would look good. Good, just a number that can be seen from Post Road, but small, because everybody uses GPS to go places. And I believe that, a lot of fire departments around the country are requiring numbers to be put on all buildings.
Okay.
And my second thought was I looked at the post sign and thinking that it might fit with white letters on one of the black columns, but that's a pretty busy sign. So my recommendation would be to put it on the building and not the pole sign. That's my comment.
All right, thanks, Sean. Allison? Allison, you're on mute. Allison, do you want us to come back to you or? Yeah, okay, I want to come back to Allison. I'm going to go to Dave Humphrey, if that's okay. And then we'll go back to Allison and then Dave Riley.
Yeah, David Humphrey here. So other than the goosenecks that are shown, is there any other illuminated either signage or areas of the building? I imagine the pylon sign is illuminated, but nothing over the welcome letters?
This is James from HFA. Correct. The pylon sign is internally illuminated. The marquee sign on the Boston Post Road elevation is internally illuminated. The welcome sign at the long elevation is just not, that's not illuminated. That's correct.
Okay. David Humphrey, the decorative lattice, is that a PVC?
James Owens from HFA. Yes, correct. PVC, white PVC.
And the David Humphrey, the other white trim, I know you noted on the drawings is PVC, but like the whole block that the welcome letters sit on, that's can you do that out of a single PVC panel?
James Owens with HFA. Yes, it would be a plain white PVC panel similar to an AZEK, probably AZEK.
Yeah.
And then you can see there's kind of applied trim work on there to help break up the panel size because it's obviously some limitations on the size and whatnot. So white PVC panel with white applied trim on that entry tower.
Okay. David Humphrey, and the brick is actually a fiber cement, just brick veneer. It's not actual brick.
James Owens from HFA. Yes, that's correct. It's a fiber cement veneer.
Okay. Yeah, those are all the questions I had. Thanks.
Allison?
Yes, Allison Hughes. Liz, is this our last opportunity to comment on the design of the building, et cetera, materials?
Yeah, Liz Geiger here. I mean, it depends if we give a favorable report or not. I feel like there are going to be some changes. on this design, so I'm thinking, I don't know, but I have some comments myself. So what are you thinking? Why?
Well, I have a couple of things. First of all, I question a little bit the choice of the colonial revival type of architecture when there's that modern office building right next door. I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just questioning that choice a little bit. Also, this is not related to the building itself, it is related to the signage. I'm just wondering, is there any branding on the gasoline station? Will there be signage added to that pylon for the gasoline branding? Or will there be a separate gasoline branding signage? Mostly that's it, but I do have a few questions about the design of the building.
Amy
I
Suchins.
don't like the fact that the facade on the post road is totally, in my mind, blank. No signs of life on the post road, no doorway, no windows, no et cetera. I'll keep it to that right now.
Amy Suchins, just to be clear, there is no signage allowed on the canopies under your sign regulations, the fuel canopies and stuff. So while those may be allowed in, if you've seen a new 7-Eleven anytime recently, if you've been out of state at all, that's not proposed here. There's not allowed under your regulations. And to the extent, I would encourage all of you that to the extent that you have design related comments or anything else that we should take into account, we'd absolutely love to hear them this evening, because we do start our planning and zoning hearing next week. And so if we're making building revisions or comments, either whether it's street trees or landscaping or anything else, it would be very helpful for us to hear those comments this evening, so that way we can go into not only ZBA tomorrow night, but into the planning and zoning hearing next week with an understanding of, frankly, what all of the land use agencies have that need to be addressed, because it does happen from time to time that members of different boards may have different comments, and we need to reconcile all those. So if there is that kind of design consideration, whether it's on the post road frontage or with respect to the layout or the site or anything, that would be helpful to hear this evening.
Good evening. If I may, this is Dorothy Fleischman from 7-Eleven. And to answer your question specifically, the gas brand will be 7-Eleven, so we don't require any additional gas branding identification. It won't be, a Shell or an Exxon or anything of the sort.
Okay.
Thanks, Dorothy. Allison, do you want to make further comments on the actual design itself, or do you want me to go to Dave Riley and then we'll circle back with the board in general?
Let's go back to the board in general.
Okay. Dave Riley.
Dave Riley speaking. I guess I'm looking at, this goes back to a question about the windows on the facade, the entry facade, about ways to kind of pull them in a little bit to some of the aesthetic that we've been talking about and reviewing as a board, particularly on the post road or in the downtown section, especially with some of the redevelopment work that's going on. There has been an acknowledgement of wanting to have the larger glass to be able to look in and see the merchandise beautifully displayed. However, there's also some sensitivity to trying to break that up a little bit by using like a transom or an element in the upper portion of the window, such as a series of panes that would at least recall a little bit more of not necessarily residential, but a little bit more of a colonial aesthetic rather than a just straightforward storefront aesthetic. So, and looking at the elevation facing the pumps, those are large pieces of glass. So I was wondering if it was a way to drop the sill, but then when I look at the floor plan, I noticed there's a note that says provide black film to 42 inches. So my question is, what is the sill height as depicted on the elevation? And, you know, would we see that black film represented in any way? And if there is a black film, would we maybe then still consider dropping that sill down to give perhaps where the windows are a little bit more presence on the facade, introducing a transom element that maybe is picked up from what's happening above the entry doors, bringing that across, perhaps breaking that up a little bit. My other comment is the massing of the entry portico, matching the ridge height and the low slopes of the roofs. It looks a little massive when compared to the rest of the facade. I just, again, without any specific suggestions on it, I think it would be a nice thing to maybe look at potentially even doing a flat roof on, or looking at maybe different pilasters or changing the proportion of the pilasters, something along those lines. But I think that needs some, I think it needs some work to make it, you know, while it still is an entrance and, you know, obviously directs people to where the doors are, I think that it kind of is, it needs to be brought up a level from a design aesthetic standpoint, and not necessarily just borrowing the elements that are otherwise used on the facade. So if you could comment on the windows question first, and then just any sort of feedback on the entry portico, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Well, this
is James from HFA. I'm just looking at the floor plan. So the sill height on that brick is 3 feet, and that's continuous around the building. There really was no magic to that, with the exception that we were just trying to find a kind of a nice proportion. On the interior, you're right, there is some design elements that would block the height. We have a stand-up counter along the left side of the door, so you know that's typically at a height of 42 inches, as you noted. So that black film would just be at the bottom bands, so you wouldn't see that casework. The other way we could kind of treat it is to do something applied on the actual millwork and keep the glass clear. So I think the sill height maybe would be preferred to be a little bit lower, just for kind of proportions and, you know, visibility. With regards to the transom, you know, I certainly can understand the need to maybe break up the large panes of glass, and I guess just kind of looking at it, I'd maybe want to introduce a horizontal mullion, maybe not at the same height as the mullion across the door, but maybe like a foot down on that glass, just so that it's less of a, I guess not to kind of break it into two squares. So, you know, I guess the proposal would be to maybe introduce a horizontal mullion to create a transom look at, you know, approximately 1 foot down from the top of the storefront windows. And then we could probably introduce some small little vertical muttons, you know, maybe 4 lights into each storefront. And that would probably just mean to maybe drop that interior signage down a little bit, just so that it doesn't fall within the mullion, because that's something that we'd want to kind of keep consideration of, is to provide an area for that to be visible. And then with regards to the entrance, I would be curious to hear from the rest of the board and maybe poll them. I think we could probably look at the proportions, maybe dropping down the ridge height and looking at that a little bit. But like I said, I'd like to maybe poll the rest of the board and see what their feedback is on that. If it's yes, it needs to be scaled down, or if it feels appropriate.
All right, Dave Riley speaking here again. All right, thanks. I appreciate your feedback on that. And I definitely see that, you know, with the hanging interior signs, introducing that horizontal element makes it a bit challenging. And I think perhaps treating the back of the millwork rather than treating the glass as far as masking what's happening at the that sitting bar would at least keep the glass as kind of a singular element. And that would allow you to drop that sill down. I think once you introduce that horizontal element above, yeah, the proportions of the glass, I think there's definitely some further study that would have to be reviewed at that point just to get those proportions right, which obviously I know you can accomplish there. And I think also one of the things that threw me off on that entry is, we got these kind of this low pitched roof, but then on the street elevation, the front pitch of it is this kind of drastic change to where it's like really steep on the hip, and that I think it just throws that off a little bit. And again, whether it goes, whether it's dropped down or if it's maybe even a flat roof of some form, which could actually play off of the canopies at the pumps, for instance. Again, I'm just throwing out there. Just is there something that, while it does distinguish itself, is there something that can kind of make it a little bit more special? I guess is something that I would look for that would bring that design just up a little bit. But again, it's no specific solutions on my part, but just comments. I appreciate you listening to them. I'm done.
Thanks, Dave. Liz Geiger, chairman here. I guess I want to open this back up to the board and circle back on this. Putting signage aside, to Amy and James specifically, I still would have loved as part of the actual presentation, the drawings, to see a roof plan and a building section would be good as well. And talking about the overall design, my personal opinion, just being straightforward, I just find the building itself to be somewhat just lackluster and unexciting, and not something we're really looking to develop our town and take it to the next level, using a TV marketing term. And this building, it's missing the unauthentic period details of the architectural style that I think it deserves and of this location deserves. I think we're looking at what's around us. The building across the street is not representative of Darien. The building that was there is not representative of Darien. The materials being considered here don't seem of the quality I would like to see. In trying to be offer solutions, I would like to see some more authentic materials. I'd like to see some more detailing in the building, and like I said, that relate to the architecture, the period architecture itself. Maybe playing with the depth in the windows and the trims, extending the eaves a little bit. I don't want to step on your exact architectural ideas and design, but I just feel the building is just a lackluster. And I don't know if you guys want to comment on that, or other board members want to state their name and have an opinions. Dave Humphrey.
I'll mention one thing, David Humphrey. Just piggybacking on a couple of things that David Riley brought up. I wonder if some sort of additional transom or mullion at that spandrel glass could somehow maybe tie to the design of what are now just the lattice panels. If you added another mullion or added some sort of divided light within that spandrel glass, could you then kind of mimic that design in some of the lattice panels that I understand from a layout and functionality perspective need to remain solid to make the inside of the building work, but the lattice seems a little uninspiring, so to speak, and maybe if you even kept it in some areas, but again in others tried to work with some of the other elements. They seem kind of separate right now. We have the lattice, we have the kind of commercial storefront, we have the roof dormers, which is still again seemingly a little bit separate, which I guess is just a fixed window with those divided lights. I'm wondering whether you could kind of tie those together to make the overall design and feel a little bit more cohesive. And then potentially the point about the different roof pitches, it would be interesting to see whether you matched the dormer roof pitch with the gable end, whether that helped at all, and whether if you did it with the welcome element, that would obviously have to reduce the height of that, but whether that might help tie the roof lines together.
Again, this is James with HFA. Certainly appreciate all the comments and the feedback. Just trying to get maybe a little bit more to follow up on the comment about the excitement and the kind of flatness of the building. Again, trying to get more specific feedback as to what the board might be looking for in terms of an approval. I mean, we certainly understand, the need to create, kind of good contextual architecture, and we want it to fit within Darien. We're looking at our immediate context and trying to, be a step above what is around us, but do the balancing act of not getting overly detailed where we, kind of look to the extreme and look out of context by, setting the standard. So again, if I could ask the board to maybe weigh in or provide a little bit more direction or feedback as to, specific elements they would like to see addressed. We talked about the entrance and trying to look at the scale and the, the roof, and maybe look at different roof lines. So that gives us some good feedback there. And certainly the transom and try to break up the storefront. So if there's any other feedback that could maybe point some direction, that would be helpful.
This is Sean speaking. One of my early thoughts was that the overhang or atrium over the main doors was a little bulky for the small building that it is. And I was looking at the side street elevation again from the post road. And I'm wondering if the column holding the atrium is wider and thicker than the actual facade of that last left brick area on the building. And if it is, I'm thinking making it thinner, slimmer, so that it doesn't appear so bulky in the front. And then to follow the roof line with what both Davids had said earlier.
Again,
Just
James, just to clarify, when you say front, are you referring to the Boston Post Road or the
front of the
pumps?
Yeah, no, this is Sean. The ones facing the pumps with the welcome sign, when you look at the width of those columns, they look awfully thick. And then when I look from the street elevation from Post Road, and I'm looking at the windowless Post Road side, if I look at the leftmost gooseneck on that fascia and compare the width of that brick column, if you will, to the column of the atrium looks about a third wider. And I'm wondering if it shouldn't even be thinner.
Marianne Castell here. I agree with Sean. I think its entrance is massive, and thinning it out somehow or other to relate would be an improvement. Marianne Castell.
This is Sean again. James, I mean, I looked at the layout according to the site plan, and I understand the width of the walkway and why the columns, where they come out so far. But maybe if the columns get thinner, then maybe you can pull it back just a little bit and still keep the width of the sidewalk as you have it. And just sort of, then that might, like if you pull it back towards the building a little bit, and, a couple inches, 6 inches, you still keep I act like I'm in the room with you, but, the width of the sidewalk underneath it, and keep that width, but maybe make the column that holds the front of that, thinner. It might thin it up quite a bit to be quite appealing.
Dave Riley here. Could I kind of comment further on that? Just with those front columns, it could be that even just the base of them is the brick. it could either match the sill and have the rollock course below, and then do it as paneled columns above that to pick up on the paneled facade above. It could all work together more as kind of a crafted item, and then bring that along on the side rather than the siding. So I think that would distinguish those two elements. It could even, they could even not be brick at all. I think pulling the brick into them, it's a little heavy with it being all brick going up. I think if I were to study it, just doing a couple of options on it, I would look at some different material choices on it. And incorporate perhaps paneled columns or pilasters, or not necessarily with capitals or embellishments per se, but just make them a little bit more millwork like. I think that would certainly enhance it, just in terms of distinguishing that entry portion, because that seems to be where a lot of the design in this building is going to be concentrated on that as far as what people focus on. The rest of the building is going to become somewhat secondary in background. It still should be nice. That's not denying that it shouldn't be thought of. But I think the concentration really has to focus on what we're talking about.
Again, James with HFA. No, thank you. That's it sounds like the entry could be, a focus of study, and we could present a revised option to the board that's a little bit more scaled down, articulated with some detail, looking at the sides of the columns and proportions there to maybe reduce that scale. So we can focus on that for sure, as well as some of the other comments that were made.
Yeah, this is Dorothy Fleischman from 7-Eleven, and I actually really like the suggestions for the post road side of the building, maybe putting some transoms there to give that sense.
Liz Geiger here. Thanks, Dorothy, for weighing in. James, thanks for taking this feedback. I know it's difficult when I know you've got a number of parties you guys are working with and trying to do all economies here and opinions, and I know it's a difficult job. Again, I know that we've got some good suggestions here. We started with the path. I still think there's just a level that this building needs to be escalated to. It's underwhelming compared to the level of commercial development we see and approve in this town. I'd like you guys to consider authentic materials, real brick, wood siding. What about playing with the depth on this building? I mentioned that before. In a way, Riley might want to chip in on this, but the building's flat and it lacks a lot of detail. I don't want to project on what the fix would be there, but this building something more needs addressing beyond just it. And the site plan alone is frustrating. I understand what you guys are working with. The fact that you have to, the way the building's structured, you need to turn it. But then, these suggestions for making what we're seeing on the post road, that is going to be key. Because what we're seeing right now is not something we want to see on the post road. I don't know, guys. Allison, I think we're all a little. We're not really sure what to. The board's more quieter than usual because I'm not sure where of how to direct you guys here, because we need to see something.
Can I ask, have you used this clapboard detail on any of your other 7-Elevens? These sections of clapboard siding?
This is James with HVA. Are you referring to the siding product or the brick?
No, the clapboard. It's clapboard siding, isn't it?
It's a vinyl siding. James from HVA. It's a vinyl siding product. This would be a unique to this particular 7-Eleven style that we're doing. We certainly use it in other projects, and maybe other 7-Elevens have used a similar vinyl siding. But again, we have this palette unique to this particular site.
I mean, have you used it in this manner where you set it into sections like it is?
This is Dorothy Fleischman.
Yes.
Without being able to give you a specific, I would say with the amount of stores that we have and all the different design elements we have, yes, we have done that. I'm not sure what it is that you're wondering, what what the intent of your question is? Is it maintenance? Is it?
No, it's appearance, to be honest. I think
Mhm.
that's one of the problems I have with the building, are these sections of clapboard. I understand the thought behind doing it,
Mhm.
but I don't know if I'm comfortable with the way it appears, or if that really solves your problem.
So this is James with HFA. Seems like the conversation's kind of steered towards the palette a little bit. And maybe not to get into the specific design, elements like we were before, but again, just to pull the board, is the material palette as presented acceptable? Or do we need to revisit some certain proposed materials?
Liz Geiger here.
Again, that'll keep us focused on, is it more of a massing and articulation that we need to focus on, and we have a palette that the board feels is acceptable, or is it not?
James, Liz Geiger
David
here.
Humphrey here. Do you have any, sorry, just one quick question that might help us along a little bit. Do you have any, and you probably don't have it available right now, but do you have any photos of actual, structures that you built with some of these materials, like the fiber cement brick veneer or the lattice panels that you're using? Obviously it can vary quite a bit how this might actually look once it's actually up.
Sure. This is James from HFA. As Dorothy mentioned, the 7-Eleven's got a number of stores and used a lot of these design elements at different locations. This particular palette is specific. We weren't pulling this off of another site to say, hey, we're going to do this site here, this palette here. So we can provide certainly physical material samples and maybe some photos for context. It just wouldn't be of this building, right? It may be a building that showed a vinyl siding and another one showing the brick panels. But we can certainly provide that to the board for study.
Dorothy Fleischman, this is, this building is entirely, believe it or not, unique in that, we are really trying to fit into the community, and I welcome the response and suggestions, because I think that there are things that you've suggested that make a lot of sense to adding to the presence of the building, and that was our intent to begin with. We just didn't want to pull, plan in a can and say, well, here you go, this is going to be your building. So we are very open to doing that and working our way through that. It was our intent to begin with. We have limitations, obviously, but within, I think there's a compromised position we can add that'll enhance it.
Liz, when you refer to it as flat, I think that's part of my problem. When I see these sections of clapboard just like inserted flush with the brick, with no detail around it or no, to me, I see that as a problem. I might be alone in that, but I just think it's awkward, the use of it. I don't have a problem with the materials. Like if you were to do the far gable end entirely in the clapboard, I wouldn't have a problem if you could find a way to repeat it other places. But I think it's just these insertions of it that bother me a little bit. But I might be alone.
Liz Geiger here. I feel for me it's a combination of the flatness, the lack of detail, along with the unauthentic materials. But let me start. Without getting, it seems like we're having a difficult time, James and Amy and Dorothy, getting super specific here. I think what it boils down to is we need to see options. We'd love you guys to go back and take these broad, less specific suggestions and bring back options for us. Alternate materials, alternate design, and I don't mean to put you guys through the ringer, but what I could do, if it helps, is I could give you guys a sample of a presentation we've recently seen of a commercial design in town that it was seen unanimously, approved unanimously, favorably at first pass, and give you maybe some examples of what kind of expectation level we have. to compare to. I don't know if that helps or
What
sending some.
proposal, what application was it?
We have an application, a recent one done at 1897 Boston Post Road, done by Scatino Architects in the Vaquero development.
What was the type of use? Sorry, Amy Suchins.
Yeah, Liz, you can, I don't know. We could talk offline with Dave.
Okay. Just because I think it's helpful. You know, we've had several conversations with staff over the last several months, and the challenge of coming into a town that has not had a new gas station in over 30 years led to some, led to some challenges as far as, we have done a fairly comprehensive rewrite of your zoning regulations with respect to sort of modernizing those for a 21st century gas station. It's a little harder on the architectural piece because, as Dorothy mentioned, it's a unique design for this particular property, and we tried to to look at those elements, but without you've had other office buildings, you've had other residential development. It's an easier conversation to have when there are things that staff or others can point to and say that was very well received in town. We have the both benefit and burden of being this new sort of more modern gas station that hasn't been developed. So certainly the comments are helpful. I think we have a good feel for what your goals are in trying to make some design changes. Certainly 7-Eleven and our team is able to look at those and also hopefully propose some other things that will balance all of these interests together. And so if there's again, if we have something that is similar sort of size and scale, we have a building that's 4,000 square feet, or if there's something of that magnitude that you can point to, we're certainly happy to look at that and see if that gives us further guidance.
Okay, Liz Geiger here. Yeah, if I can, yeah, if you want to talk offline, look at other proposals just to the level of design that we are hoping for and expecting, then maybe that would be great. I hope that we give you some sort of guidance, some degree here.
Absolutely, and like I said, we know we're not in downtown, and we don't have some of the same issues there. We also have sort of practical elements of this is a building that's going to have large refrigerators and coolers, and those need to be located and have that kind of thing. So we're not going to put a window in front of those. So I think we can, with your feedback, and if there are, happy to have that conversation offline, we can try and look at those issues. We can probably get some feedback from planning and zoning next week as well, as far as their comments or reactions, because I suspect we will have a little bit of the similar conversation where they have not had an application for this type of use either, and we can try to look at everything comprehensively and get a revised package to all of you addressing those comments.
And again, this is James from HFA. Again, appreciate the feedback. I mean, certainly your board has a little bit more challenge in that a lot of the comments and feedback are, more kind of more aesthetic based, and trying to balancing the regulations and everything else that's going on. So this has been helpful. I think we've got some ideas that we can kind of take a look at and come back and present some options to you guys that we feel like would be, try to address many of the concerns raised.
Liz, can I just give one example of something that we really have been very fond of that was right down the road from you, was the Carl building with—
State your name for the record, please.
Allison Hughes, sorry, where the Orange Works gym is, and the Pasta Vita, that was just recently, very recently, been all redone. And it's something that I think all the board members are very, very pleased with. And it's a similar, a little larger probably, but it's something we have really been quite happy with how it turned out.
Okay, great.
Yeah, David
Then we
Humphrey here. I'll just add quickly. I think we're all understandable to the unique aspect of the purpose of this building. I think it's just a matter of whether it's slightly different material selections or the design of the dormers. The dormer has nothing to do really with the functionality there, but it's just some of these slight design changes to, like Liz has talked about, just kind of elevate the design overall, even though it still has to be a convenience store at a gas station. I think with a little bit of rework, we can get there while still satisfying the function of the building.
Okay, and we're happy to do that, and I will follow up with staff and get the files or whatever materials for those properties, and we can get going on that. So we certainly appreciate the comments.
Thanks, Liz Geiger. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Amy, Dorothy, and James, for being so amenable to our feedback here. One last comment, by the way, about the signage. Like I said, I know you're going to go speak with ZBA, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But when you guys do come back to us with signage, a few things. Your building's allotted one wall sign, unless we do an exception. So the welcome letters above that you've suggested wouldn't be part of your sign allotment.
Correct.
Dave,
and we had, without getting too far into it, we had a discussion with the planning and zoning staff that the welcome signage was basically directional and not necessarily part of the signage package. And then those two interior window signs are not visible from the street, so they fall within the exemption for signage. So what we're really talking about is the 7-Eleven wall sign facing the Boston Post Road and the pylon sign.
Okay, great, good. And then in regard to the pylon sign, I'm going to hold you guys to task about the roost verbiage there. If it's not a business, if it's not your business, I'm not saying it won't fall under our guidelines as something acceptable unless the ARB as a whole board agrees that we're going to give you guys I'm sorry, I'm a loss of words, but an exception, I guess to say. Otherwise, we do not approve descriptive, even if it is a co-owner. So if, like, back to your example, if Mobile had a place and they wanted to promote Dunkin' Donuts as well, if Dunkin' Donuts isn't on that lease of that site, then Dunkin' Donuts sign is not going on the description of their monument sign. Does that make sense?
I can have another follow-up conversation with the staff, but I think we believe we qualify, but we're happy to have that conversation offline.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, good luck with the ZBA tomorrow night, guys. And thank you so much. ARB members, are any other comments or anyone else want to speak before I sign off here? No. All right. Thank you guys so much. And James, I appreciate you taking the speed fire here. I know you were the main target, so thanks. You did a great job.
No, thanks, guys. That's what we're here for. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right. ARB members, I'm sorry, it's 7:06 p.m. We've got 20 minutes. Let me wrap this up. I'd like to move on to our second to last agenda item here, which is discussion of the extended downtown tree list plan. You guys got a copy of this in your packets. I'm going to let Leslie jump on and do an overview of what we've done here. Sure, Leslie, why don't you just take it?
Leslie McCauley. Hi, guys. Going back to where we left off maybe 2 months ago, just to remind you, right now in our existing downtown central business district tree list, we have 7 trees, and one of them, the red maple, is only for a gateway tree, which was kind of thought of at the beginning of where 95 is and then toward Brookside. That being said, there are greater opportunities for larger trees that are more representative of Connecticut that can go from the town line right along Post Road. So the board suggested I came up with 6 to 8 new street trees that would be used in with the existing central business district trees. So that is the 8 trees that you have, the proposed street tree list. So then I'm going to take red maple off the count because unless you're at a bypass, you really can't use it. So then that would take you to 14 trees to plant across the 3.2 miles of downtown, of Post Road, sorry. And they're all different, sorry, and they're all different sizes. You might see, like, some of these are pretty substantial trees, like the London plane tree, the sweet gum, the tulip tree. These are much larger trees because they couldn't have been on our downtown tree list because there's really no room. So I think we're hoping that there might be room for larger trees that are more representative of the character of Connecticut beyond the central business district. That's it.
Yeah, Liz Geiger, I think yes, Leslie did it beautifully. Expanding this list shows people coming into Darien that they're still within Darien. We've created a limited list of trees, so people drive down Darien. We know we're still in this town, but there's a clear distinguishability between the main downtown, the Post Road, and the extended downtown. And as a second part of what Leslie said in addressing this list that she's created here is it allows us to do trees in this extended downtown that we couldn't do in the main downtown because of building size and power lines, et cetera. So I think Leslie's done a great job.
If we kept the existing street tree list and applied it to the 4 miles of Post Road through town, all the trees would only be 20 feet high. So we needed another list that had larger trees.
So Liz Geiger here again. If you guys, basically what I like is, in the end, is your approvals. That this is something we want to recommend. If you have suggestions, I would love that as well. I know Leslie's put a lot of time into it and is an expert here, so she can answer any questions or concerns if there are any of those.
Allison Hughes, we're lucky to have your expertise, Leslie. Thank you.
Leslie, thank you very much.
Sherry Green, I agree. I probably could identify about 4 of these trees, and then I would need a guide for the rest of them. So thank you. This is wonderful to have.
Thank you.
I agree.
Marion? Oh, thanks, Sean.
Dave Riley here. Yeah, I think it's very well thought through, and yeah, I totally support it.
Marion Castell here. I think it's beautifully thought through, and I support it.
Dave Humphrey, you're the only one left. Are you just angry?
Sorry. Well, no, absolutely. Love it. It's, as everyone said, we're lucky to have you on board.
Thank
Be
you.
able to do this.
Okay, so Liz Geiger here, are we issuing then a favorable report and suggesting and then and giving me the freedom to pass on this expanded tree list to planning and zoning to publish?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Great. Okay, I will do that. Moving on to the discussion.
Dave Riley here. Just one question. Okay.
Yeah, yes, please.
Are these, is there an actual, does the town actually have like a planting plan in place that this will be inserted to, should it go through the process? Is there like, do we know like how many trees a year they're planning on implementing this with? Or I'm just curious to know the implementation of this, which is a great list, but you know, how do we know that it's gonna get put into effect?
Liz Geiger, oh, Leslie, go.
So it would have to take
Say your name, Leslie, for the record, please.
Leslie McCauley. So it would have to take new construction, trees dying, a blight for new tree pits to become available, so to speak. So unless, I mean, I don't suggest us cutting down all the street trees along Post Road right now. It would be when the next trees are planted and are considered, then these are the 15 to choose from.
Dave Riley. Okay, I appreciate it. I didn't know how the process was set up to actually implement the expanded list. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Liz Geiger here. And sorry, Marion, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it seems to me when we had that design work done on downtown, the commercial design work, we had a tree plan there. And I presume this is going to replace it. I'm not certain, but that has to be correlated. I mean, that was a pretty good plan, but remember we talked about it once before. You have a copy. I have a copy on my computer I can send around.
Liz Geiger here. No, absolutely, Mary. This is the extension of that plan. If you'll see in Leslie's other pages, it shows the existing street plan. It just is the call out of the list of trees.
Okay.
Is it from our 2016 design guidelines? And I have to talk with Dave Keating offline once you guys approve this and figure out how we take this and legally interject it into those guidelines. They've already been published. I don't know if we can do that or if we just do an amendment. Dave will have to help me with that.
I was following up on Dave's comments, about how it's been implemented. Okay.
Yeah, I will have to work with Dave Keating on how we actually officially go about doing that and publishing it to new commercial developers or to the town Parks and Recreation Board on how they and when they use this and how they go about doing that. But that's a good question.
Okay,
good. Okay, last item on the agenda. Very quickly is discussion of the ARB checklist for qualification of acceptance for applications. To give you guys a reminder of our background is we've seen a lot of applications come through here that haven't been complete. So at our frustration, we've been kind of having more extensive dialogues that we shouldn't have had we had all the proper materials. Tonight is one good example where we could have used a lot more materials, samples, etc. So I'm working with the Dave Keating and the P&Z to create a cover page to all our applications on what materials are required. If you guys check your emails, Dave Keating sent out today at 3:32 p.m. the revised checklist that we came up with per our discussion at our July meeting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's like over 10 items here. And Sean, Dave, a bunch of you guys put together also just suggestions as well on how they're presented. Do you guys have any additions to this list or any of the things you want to comment on before Dave takes this, runs with this, and we amend this new application process? Sean Brown, you're an operations guy. You always have a comment here. Come on.
This is Sean. It's interesting because I don't have my July 21st handwritten notes because I shipped them back to myself from Iowa, but I had them all written off on the left, and I think we've covered most of them in this email: survey, elevation, site plan, lighting plan, landscape. I think one of the things we ought to look to that ought to be a big one is the photos of the surrounding properties. David Humphrey is always really good about Google Maps and Google Views about looking at things while we're in the meeting, which is quite helpful. But I think that the more comprehensive the checklist and the more comprehensive the response to this from the applicants, I think the better our discussions are. Because of the knowledge that's presented. Brennan from Barvita tonight, I think he knows his property well. And he's looked at the neighboring properties, and it's just an example of those that, have looked around, but I think there can be improvement for us if they know more than just what their, particular sole interest is and what the effect is of their application on the surrounding property. So I think the checklist is very important. And, if there's a couple more items to be added, I think we should add them.
Marion Castell, I don't seem to have that. I have the email from Dave Keating at 3:29, but the checklist is not on it. That I
It
could
was
find.
sent Liz Geiger sent it 3:32 p.m.
I don't have it.
It was titled
It's in the
application.
body of the it's in the body of the email. It's not an
I
attachment.
looked through pretty quickly on the one that's 3:29. I couldn't. Well, if it's there, I'll find it. I just been looking. I can't find it. But
It's not 3:29. It's at 3:32 p.m. from Dave Keating.
no, I have 3:29. I did not get the 3:32 one. So maybe he could send it again.
All right, you're on the email, but I'm sorry.
I know, but something happened. At least I don't have it. I'm sorry. Don't take time. We'll worry about that later.
Sherry Green, I have a comment. I think for me, one of the most important things is to have the material samples and color samples. I think, trying to rely on the computerized color or, I'd like to see the samples. And I know it's hard with these meetings, but I think they need to be prepared to offer that.
Great. Absolutely.
As I realized after we spoke about this that on the existing checklists, one of the items is photographs of subject property business and neighboring properties businesses. So I think part of this is going to be, make it more clear. I don't know how it could really be more clear, but somehow either reject something if it's not complete, or figure out some way to. I think this was in the email. Organize it a little bit more clearly. Maybe have examples of what, in this case, photographs of the subject property and neighboring properties should look like, because it's been there and people still don't do it. So that tells me that it's not just a matter of having it on a checklist. It's the way that we ask for it, and it's enforcing it when it's not there.
Yeah,
So
I
that was just
appreciate
a
that.
comment, not a solution, but.
No, Liz Geiger, I appreciate that, Dave Humphrey. I actually talked to Dave Keating about that, and I said that he could actually put the responsibility on me and say if applicants don't put in, he'll put a simple cover letter with a checklist. If he gets application that doesn't have those items checked, that he can say, take that thing and put it right back to the applicant and say, sorry, I can't accept this. And you can blame me if that's the case, and say, our chairman won't pass this to the board unless we've got these items. Otherwise, we can't review the applications incomplete. So.
Liz, Sherry Green, it also keeps them from having to come back again. And I think that they realized if they did it right the first time, wouldn't have to have these revolving door meetings with some of these applicants.
Right, I agree. Okay, so Liz Geiger, it sounds like, go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
David Humphrey, what's the deadline for these applications as far as length of time prior to our meeting?
I should know this. I think all submissions have to be in 2 weeks to 10 days before our actual meet. I think 2 weeks before our actual meeting.
Okay, so that would, provide enough time to look at it and say it's incomplete. You're welcome to resubmit it, within 5 days before our meeting or something. But beyond that, it would have to be pushed to the following month.
Right. Okay. Well, it sounds like this, Mary, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have the list. Sean sent it to me quickly, and I don't understand refer to projects of Bob Maslin on the end of this list, who brings a complete list. What does that mean? Well, I don't understand that.
I think that Bob Maslin's project was used as an example. I mean, I guess we would have put that in our working document, but Bob Maslin, when he puts together applications, they include pretty much everything we always ask for on the list. He's great about putting together a full application.
Okay, so that's going to be a sample that you can compare against one of his proposals.
Correct. Yes. Okay, guys. All right, so it sounds like that list is pretty complete and we're good to go ahead with that. Correct, everyone? I guess
I agree.
Okay, I don't need an approval, but I just want to move forward. I just want to get some stuff checked off so we're not seeing this again. Okay, we're not going to discuss this again. We're going to implement. All right, approval. Moving forward, approval of minutes, July 21st. Everybody get a chance to read Sean's diligent notes?
Hey, this is Sean. It's pretty funny. I never got them back. I gave them to David, but I thought there was an email that came out with them. I didn't see it.
There was actually. Tamara sent them out as an addendum to this, to the application packet.
Liz,
Were they good?
Leslie?
Sorry, I wasn't listed in attendance.
You weren't on there, Leslie.
I was there, but I wasn't listed as being there.
Right. Oh, all right. Sounds good.
My fault. Sorry.
Okay, I'll make that one change. Beyond that, any other changes or everyone else approve?
Approved.
Approved. All right, that's great, guys. All right. There's no other business to consider since this is a special meeting. Thank you guys for your time. It's 7:23 p.m. I'll talk to you guys next month.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.